is my very great privilege this evening to introduce a colleague and friend, Reverend Stephen Foster, who I met working with Lunch Positive. And of course, Stephen has worked with Lunch Positive much, much longer in greater depth than I have. And I think we'll be sharing a little of that this evening with us. And I'd also like to welcome Martin. And of course, Stephen is working at St. Luke's, or associated with St. Luke's, and Martin at St. Mary's. Although, of course, you're both retired. You wouldn't know it. You would not know it. I'm sure you work harder now than when you were, yeah, seriously. But it's an absolute joy to have both of you with us this evening. And Stephen, we've been really looking forward to you sharing with us. Please come. Thank you.
Firstly, obviously, it's a very great pleasure for me to finally get a day to be with you. And it's funny how it's worked out. It's in LGBT History Month and Week. And you always look back about what's achieved and what you've done over many years. And I was saying to somebody in the tent the other day, it seems strange that as a youngster at King's London, I joined the Gay Liberation Front and CHE, went on the second ever Pride, and it seems a long time ago, but in many ways it isn't. And then after King's, the church decided to calm me down a bit, and I went to the College of the Resurrection, Mirfield, which is the only monastic college in the Church of England for training priests, and therefore I hope I've calmed down a bit. But that's me. I chose today's reading particularly because in the sort of 3-year lectionary that the Roman Church and a lot of the Anglican Church and the URC Church, this is the year you're working through Matthew as the Gospel reading. So part of it, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is it not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? Matthew's Gospel was a source for one of the most beautiful religious films there has ever been. 1964, Pasolini, The Gospel of St. Matthew. 1964. And while I was preparing for tonight, you can actually get the whole film now on YouTube. So if you've never ever seen Pasolini's The Gospel According to Matthew, you really need to. Obviously, Pasolini being very outwardly gay, Jesus is the most cutest Jesus you've ever come across, hand-picked. And this bit of the preaching is marvellous. This particular quote is used as Jesus is preaching, and the music is lovely, and you really feel this is the Lord through film speaking to me. And then exactly 10 years later, another film with the same central passage by another gay Italian film director, Zeffirelli, in his Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, which is a look at the history of St. Francis. And of course, St. Francis is equally the cutest saint you've ever come across. But it's that moment where you feel this is absolutely lovely. But you realise very soon that that is an ideal. And we don't live day to day in that ideal. You and I, countless times, have walked up and down James Street. The homeless, the sick, those thrown out of their homes. How can we, as Christians, just glibly go and say, oh, don't worry about what to eat, don't worry about what to wear, all will be provided. And it isn't. Jesus is saying, let us not worry about it because we've got the money not to worry. But how do you say to people on nothing or the basic help from the state, don't worry? And here, where you are here, and St Mary's Hall next door, St Mary's Church, and indeed where Lunch Positive meets in general at the Methodist Church, there's a line of committed Christians of the social gospel. And the social gospel can only work if we root it in prayer, and particularly the breaking of the bread together, because that is where the source of our life comes. And it's been a strange week. It's been great having the tent over there and being alongside as Lunch Positive and all other people with there. At the same time, the General Synod of the Church of England, God bless them, is tearing themselves apart as who you can marry. It really is strange, because I can assure you, those people there don't give a toss. It doesn't connect. It really doesn't connect in the world. You can't get a more faithful Anglican priest than me, but the institution does irritate me, which could be a really good thing to say. In my experience, how can 44 diocesan bishops suddenly all agree on one matter? They never have before. Which, no, they haven't. They haven't. So it's been manipulated, but there was one vote against. There was one vote, one diocesan bishop, and Martin and I were at home and said, who's been the brave soul to vote against it? And of course the BBC got there straight away, and he was the Bishop of Coventry, and instead of just going, got up and apologised and said, I pressed the wrong button. I pressed, that's our church leaders running a diocese of Coventry. But I've not come to talk about that, but to say how sometimes the life of the church and that which we get caught up in is so removed from where people are. So the social action here in James Street is very important. Lots of you will know Lunch Positive and its work, but you may not know its history of where it started. It actually started in Eastbourne in the later 80s, with a priest called Father Marcus Riggs. He was a curate in Eastbourne, and he decided the most simple thing, to open his door. He left his door open for people affected by HIV and their family and their partners to come. And he would feed them. And it was a safe space. And obviously the later 80s, when people were very much being affected by people dying of AIDS, and we needed to do something. So the Diocese of Chichester, in its great generosity at that time, thought this is a great model for ministry in the James Street area. And so they bought 35 Camelford Street, and they called it Open Door. And there Marcus lived in as a sort of coordinating presence of the church with this very specialised ministry. And so you would get attached to their social workers, mental health workers, and some of you may have even worked there, I don't know. And it was a really incarnational reality of the church at its best there, in the middle of the community. And part of that was a providing of lunch for people that either A, couldn't afford it, or just wanted to be in a safe space, or a decent meal that week on a Friday. And Gary Pargeter was the coordinator of that. And when I came to Brighton, I was the previous vicar of the Annunciation in Washington Street, by the way. And through getting to know Gary and knowing Open Door, I was there quite a lot. And then suddenly, without warning, the diocese decided to pull the funding from the most real, central, incarnational aspect of ministry and closed it. I'm not going to go into whether it was right or wrong or finances, that is now history. But Gary wasn't prepared to let that simple part of eating together on a Friday go. And so with negotiation over several months, nearly 8 years ago, he set up Lunch Positive, which is really the Friday bit of Open Door at Dorset Gardens Methodist Church. And it has grown enormously over the years. And I know some of you have been, some of you volunteered there. And without our volunteers, we can do nothing. It is a wonderful space. I know I'm biased because I'm one of the trustees. I know I'm biased, but it is a wonderful space where people can be safe, people can eat together. There's a nominal fee of £1.30, but if you can't afford it, it doesn't matter. You are fed, you are cared for, and you're loved. And in many ways, that is really the mission of the church, because I'm a priest trustee. It's in a church building. Heather Leakdate, who some of you know is the consultant HIV pharmacist, she's a Methodist minister attached there. So it's the church still there. But the greatest problem has been the anger towards the church by this community, the anger towards the church by really running away from them. And I've been, as I said, I'm now chair of trustees, I've been there 4 years now, and it's only just beginning to heal. Because, and I'm not blowing my own trumpet, I don't go there with this on. I am not there as a priest. I am initially there as Stephen. And you have to build up your respect. They all know I'm a priest, but they obviously don't like priests at the moment. But we are getting there slowly. But see what one action of one Christian body, the Diocese of Chichester, has caused locally. We are building it, and we are rebuilding it very well. So much so that some of you know, a year and a bit ago, the trustees were able to employ Gary. A bit more than half-time. It was difficult to start, but if you know Gary, you know there's no barriers of when you're on and when you're off. It's not the easiest thing to be trustee of, don't tell him that. It's on camera. Hi, Gary. But that man's enthusiasm and drive has really made a huge effect in this area and with other LGBT smaller groups. And so it's a privilege to now employ him. And we're one of the few people that not only have secured extra funding from the city, but it's grown. We get a lot of new funding because we're trying to do new work. And it's not a secret. The next thing we're hoping to do, particularly in the area, is to open a community cafe in James Street. And it would have to be somewhere that's already cafe and water and running, so that we could have our offices above, training, storage, which is what we don't have. And also, for somebody just pop in, have a coffee, talk to others who are not HIV, who want to be alongside them. And I think that could be a great thing, and I hope you will come on board as a group of people to help us. We're not looking for money at the moment, but just your presence. Because as I said, it's the presence of the Christian, not the proselytizing of the Christian, it's the presence of the Christian that always makes the difference. Films are easy to watch. They take you out of the reality of where you are. And when you've got a very cute St. Francis and an even cuter Jesus, it's very easy to float off into ideals. And they're great, they are ideals. but we are earthed here. And I believe none of us can walk up and down James Street saying to the people we meet, lying in the gutter, literally some of them, don't worry about what to eat or what to wear, because they couldn't care less. But what they do care about is you or I perhaps bending down, talking, and that little bit. That is the gospel of St. Matthew.
Amen.